bitch jump ship. Welcome to the Rock. Welcome to the Rock.
Will and Sean are going to San Francisco.
How, in the name of Zeus's butthole, did you get out of your cell?
Cage. I could discuss Cage for hours.
Welcome everyone, and this is another episode of Cage. I could discuss Cage for hours with our host, Sean Graham. This is episode number 4, in case you're counting, and we are on location at Alcatraz today, San Francisco, California. Because today we're going to discuss The Rock, and as always, I have Sean here to give you a synopsis.
The Rock is, the synopsis should be, it's the greatest action film ever made, in this guy's opinion. I came prepared today, as you'll see, with my Rock promo hat, my Rock button and shirt. Very exciting. The story of The Rock. Military men, bad military men, take hostages at the now tourist attraction Alcatraz to try to get some payment for their dead friends from Vietnam, I think, or Desert Storm, I can't remember. Anyway, basically, the government then has to send people in to try to get the situation under control. They send in a chemical super freak, played by Nick Cage, the only person who's ever broken out of Alcatraz, played by Sean Connery, to try to get The Rock back under control before the bad guys shoot rockets full of deadly gas into San Francisco. It's sort of a...
It is a lot.
It's a lot, yeah, it's a lot. And I have this, I always liked the copy from the poster, so it reads, Alcatraz, only one man has ever broken out. Now 5 million lives depend on 2 men breaking in. That's also a great summary for the plot.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You have your button on it. It says
I do.
June the 7th.
June 7th, yes. June 7th, that's when it came out. Get Ready to Rock was one of the marketing copy lines. Here we go, San Francisco, The Rock, Alcatraz Island, and the Rock movie promo hat as well. Yeah, so I actually did see this in the theater, thankfully. It was around that time where my parents, depending on the rated R movie, what it looked like it might be rated R for, they would be fine with me going or not. This one I really, really, really wanted to see. I loved all the promos for it. And I remember very vividly the very first time I saw it was at this old dollar theater in downtown Mesa that is no longer in existence, but it used to be right down the street from where my parents' business is. And so my sister and I, combination plumbing, that's it. Now retired though, so don't try to call them for your plumbing needs. So yeah, my older sister Nikki and I, we walked down and went to the movie. We were a little late, probably because something my dad did. He's always running late. And so we were late to the movie, and I remember we came in during the, we missed the whole opening credits and the actual theft of the VX gas at the beginning of the film. So we came in during Nick Cage's intro when he's trying to get that package, that care package with the baby and the gas in it, and they're in that thing, and it's so intense, and but I'll never forget it. It was a great experience. I did go back to the theater to see it again after that because I loved it so much, and then caught the beginning obviously, but great film.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So I mentioned that we're at Alcatraz today, and I also want to say that it's a live set, so we're on public-private property, going to California or something, San Francisco. So there's people coming, so you'll see that. They're very close.
Nice.
Anyway, I've got a monster page of questions, so we're going to kick it off right now. And question number 1 is Leaving Las Vegas, for which Nick Cage won an Academy Award for Best Actor, was the film just before he made this film, The Rock. How different are these two movies, and what kind of a career move is that?
Well, they're obviously very different. If anybody has seen the two movies, they couldn't be more different. I don't know the budget of Leaving Las Vegas, but it was obviously a very low budget independent film. he came off, won the Oscar for it. It's a great performance. But then, yeah, the shift from that to definitely the biggest budget film he had been in to date, The Rock, a huge movie blockbuster, summer blockbuster. There was so much money being thrown at it. It was the first time he had done anything like that, and I think it was intentional for him. I heard that he was sort of challenged in a way, like some people he knew, people in his circle, or people talking on the internet, whatever it was back then in publications, talking about how, his like wacky style of acting, as they would say, would never fit. It was too indie for any kind of a big budget film. And so I think he kind of took that as like a challenge, like, well, I'll show you what I can do, and I want to be able to do the kind of acting I do in a bigger budget film. Wouldn't that be interesting? And he always loved like the old Bond films and action films like that. So I think, for him it was a challenge as well. And it took his career in a very different direction. He kind of did a series of these three, like the action trilogy that I feel like a lot of people my age anyway really know and love him from, like The Rock. Right after that he did Con Air and then Face Off, and these three films are like huge blockbuster action adventure movies. Big career move, but I think intentional for him, and it really opened a lot of doors. It kind of, right after the Oscar, to then become a box office success, I think that he was kind of able to get anything he wanted for a bit, right? That's what I would assume.
Yeah, well, the other thing I had read was that apparently in the script there was nothing funny at all, ever.
Yeah.
Not the one word of one line was funny. And so obviously when they brought him in and they allowed him to sort of ad-lib or to waver a little bit, it made for some terrific moments, which we're going to talk about.
Yeah, he said, I was listening to the commentary of the film again, which I think maybe I'd listened to it once, but he was talking a lot about how he doesn't like to improv, that it's a misconception that he likes to just improv, especially if he's been like working all day. It's like the last thing he wants to do is try to like write a line of dialogue that makes sense for the character, right? But I think it obviously happened a lot in this movie, and it definitely, to your point, benefits the movie. It makes the movie, you need those light breaks, and there's a lot of it in this movie, not just from him, but from a lot of the other characters, and that's part of what appeals to me to this movie, is that it's very funny, but it's got some great action, and it's just got everything. It's got a little bit of everything for me.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with the funny parts.
Yeah.
It helps a lot.
So funny, yeah.
Because it is a very serious.
Very serious. You got to break that tension, Yeah, absolutely.
No doubt. So I was going to ask you if you've ever been to Alcatraz before today.
Yes, I have been. I almost went a second time, but yes, I've been once. Loved it. Very interesting. I've almost went a third. This is the second time, I guess, but yeah, it's great. Have you been?
This is the first time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you like it so far?
Oh yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it's
cool. Historic.
I don't want to get trapped here at night.
Yeah. I mean, we're lucky. It's kind of a warm day for out here in the Bay,
Right.
Um,
And also, we want to show everyone something which will be hard to see on camera, but we'll punch in the shot.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us a little bit about it.
So I've got this tattoo here. You probably won't be able to see it, but maybe in the shadow there. This is an outline of Alcatraz with a quote from the movie saying, "You're the Rocket Man." This is, I usually say, my favorite movie. I just grew up loving it. I've always watched it. And so Nick Cage, favorite actor. Elton John, favorite musician. The Rock, favorite movie. All of it encompassed into one tattoo, which I got in San Francisco for my bachelor party. For my bachelor party, we almost went to Alcatraz again. I found out during the trip that my three friends who had kind of really put it together had purchased a bunch of cheap stuff at Army surplus store and stuff like that. They wanted to, the entire weekend we were there, recreate and reenact the entire movie. And so they had planned us to go to Alcatraz. They contacted Alcatraz, said, "Hey, we're going to come there with some Nerf guns and stuff and try to shoot and recreate some scenes from The Rock. Is that something that we're going to get in trouble for?" And they said, "Yeah, you can't do that here." So they got shut down, but I appreciate that they tried, and that would have been hilarious. Also, I may have drank a little too much on our first night there, so it was probably for the best. But I do wish that we would have done that. We did get to reenact some of the scenes, a famous sex rooftop scene, of course. We did reenact some other small stuff, but it sort of went away pretty quickly, that idea that we were going to be able to reenact the entire film in the city of San Francisco.
I like that hope was alive for moments, though.
It was, man. It really was.
What do you mean we can't do that?
I would have loved to have seen that person's face getting that call. Yeah.
I know. How often did he get that call?
Probably not often, right? Yeah.
So, this question is a little off, but whatever. Cage had grown frustrated with compact discs in his own life, and so he decided to incorporate his love for old-fashioned albums, LPs, which are not old-fashioned anymore, into his character of Stanley Goodspeed. So my question is, why are compact discs better than old-fashioned LPs?
I actually love this question because one of my really good friends is currently in this same, the reverse situation, which is interesting for today's times. Now that people are loving vinyl, and vinyl has, outsold CDs, right? For the first time in the last couple of years, I think in a long time. Well, he's gone the opposite way, which I love because, you and I, obviously, we love CDs. He's now back in the CD game. And I love it. It gives me so much joy. And he's like, you know what? I doubted you for all those years, made fun of you for buying all those stupid CDs, and now he's back in the CD game, which I love. CDs, for me, it's the accessibility, right? Vinyl, I don't have a vinyl player in my car. I can't be like, and if I did, it would be skipping more than a CD might skip in the car, you know what I mean? Which I think was Nick Cage's complaint, that there was too much skipping going on. What I want to know is, what was he doing to his CDs to make them skip so much? It's not that easy, But they're better for a lot of different reasons. You can obviously import that music if you want, so then you can take it with you everywhere. You sort of own it, right? That physical media, ownership that you feel with that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm preferential to them. They're smaller, also easier, lighter.
Take up less space.
Way less space.
Yeah.
Unless you have too many of them like I do.
Right. Then it's over.
Yeah.
So in the film, though, I just tripped my own microphone here.
Oh.
Sitting on my cords is why. In the film, this is the record right here. This is called Meet the Beatles, featuring the Beatles, a band you probably heard of.
Maybe.
And I think he paid $600 for it.
$600,
Yeah.
he said.
So this one came from Freak Beat.
Bring her to
99
me,
cents.
Phil.
Yeah. So not in particularly good condition, quite poor conditions, as sitting in the dirt actually as well. A ton of great songs in here. I'm not going to read them all to you.
Did you?
It's here.
I can hear that. That plane coming in. That's Paul McCartney. He's coming. He's really upset that you put this record in the dirt.
Oh yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's what that noise is. We thought it was a passenger airplane, but it's not.
You like this album?
This album is good.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I mean, listen to the lineup. Just I'll quickly say it. I Want to Hold Your Hand. I Saw Her Standing There. This Boy, beautiful. I Won't Be Long. All I've Got to Do. All My Lovin'. That's A. Here's side 2. Side B. Don't Bother Me, Little Child. Till There Was You. Hold Me Tight. I Want to Be Your Man. Not a Second Time. It's solid. They're young too.
Very young, yeah.
So young. This one has a little JB. He just took his. Whoever had it took a eraser from a pencil and carved their name in it.
You don't know who this was? I thought you bought this. I thought this was Jerry Bruckheimer's, and that's why you bought that.
God, I didn't even think that. That is so right. He must have, you know what? I had read a story about Jerry unloading all of his records and doing CDs. This is some decades ago, but that's
There you go.
I had no idea.
Thanks, Bruckheimer.
So that's amazing, truly.
That's his production cost associated with this shoot today.
Yes.
Is this record. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So yeah, good record. Anyway, back to the movie. The car chase in San Francisco turned out to be the biggest clusterfuck I've ever done in my entire filming career, says director Michael Bay. Was there 100 cars destroyed? I'm not sure. As far as car chases go, how would you rate this one?
Do you know when that quote was from? I'm curious.
I don't know if it was the initial publicity or many years after.
Well, it's interesting because he was a music video director and met up with Bruckheimer Simpson, that production duo or producing duo, during Days of Thunder when he shot a music video for one of the Days of Thunder soundtrack artists. And his first movie was Bad Boys, which also has car chases. But so it's funny that he says that because I think that there's a huge car chase in this movie he did later called The Island, but I want to say it probably still holds true, that statement. So I was just kind of curious.
Yeah, I think he said something about how they had to, permitting.
Yeah.
Which we may or may not have today. But permitting, they had to go to every neighborhood along the path.
Absolutely.
And talk to every business and every resident and get signatures.
Yeah.
And I mean, not him personally, the production company had to, and I'm sure it cost a lot of money, took a lot of time, and was probably kind of frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, that alone, right, big headache. But then all the hills and the fog in that city, you know, I think they were shooting in the winter, they said, and you know, I mean, that city notoriously with the fog, I think it's different now. Like the fog isn't as maybe much as it used to be. I feel like I read an article about that recently, but I could be wrong. You know, I just like, so that on top of, you know, all of the hassle of having to get those permits would have been insane. And it's a wide scoping car chase, right? It's a great car chase. I love it. I'm partial to it. I think that it works really well. It's got that classic Michael Bay, what it looks like when you're in the driver's seat with whoever's driving, Connery or Cage, that obviously the car is not moving and he's just doing this, the camera, and they're just shooting lights at him and stuff to make it look like they're, you know, but it's very effective, I think. You know, it's very, I think it's edited really well together. The music's great in the movie altogether, and the music's great in that scene. There's a lot of great stuff. Cage has that great line, "Oh, well, why not?" when he takes his Lamborghini, his yellow Lamborghini, and crashes through the, Ferrari, it's a Ferrari, crashes through that window. I know that it's a Ferrari because when the chase is ending, he crashes the car, and some passerby, I guess, says, "Dude, you just fucked up your Ferrari." Cage goes, "Wasn't mine." And the guy laughs. Great line. So it's great. I really love it. It's probably my favorite car chase, I would say, in a movie. You know, I love a lot. Obviously, Bullet is great. People are always trying to recreate it in San Francisco. Nonetheless, it's like, that's a great comparison there. I love the car chase in Ronin. I love the car chase in... Does Duel count as a whole car chase movie? Because I love Duel. The car chase in Death Proof is wonderful also. Do you remember that?
No.
Where she's like on the hood of the car.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's really
No wonder
excellent.
it's not
Yeah, it's really very good. So
Yeah. Wow.
yeah.
So why are the boilers working on the rock when the island hasn't been used in 30 years?
That's a great question. That's probably one of the flaws in the movie, but I mean, technically it's a tourist destination now, right? So maybe they've got these boilers working so that, you know, we're not freezing our asses off here, or the rangers, because it's a park, right? Like maybe the rangers who work here need it for whatever reason. I mean, I don't know, you know, that would be my best guess.
Yeah, it's funny because I don't want to deep dive today into current HVAC situation on Alcatraz, but I would like to know.
Yeah.
Like, what part do you get to see? How is that sort of, I don't know, you know, removed from the rest of it so it can be taken care of, like
right.
heating and cooling, in a heating and cooling way.
I imagine that there's no heat going on over there,
Right.
or over here, right? Like
you need to bring a jacket.
oh yeah. That's like I said, we're lucky.
I mean, here. What am
Yeah.
I saying there?
I know.
Or here.
That's I keep too. Yeah.
Bring it here. So speaking of, we talked a little bit about music, but the score.
Yeah.
What is your feeling?
So
What is your impression of the score?
It's really good. I read something interesting about one of the actors struggling to give a speech during the film, and I just wonder how connected all this is. He was having a hard time giving a speech to a bunch of the Navy SEALs, played by actual, I think, military men, and then as well as Connery and Cage. It's when they're about to get on this helicopter and go over to the island at the beginning. Michael Biehn is the actor, great actor, right? So he was having trouble delivering it because he just felt like, this is fake. I'm delivering it to people who have been in this situation or been in situations like this. He couldn't get through it. Michael Bay took him aside and said to him, "This is what I picture. I'm picturing this." And he played him the Crimson Tide theme song. So Crimson Tide was also produced by Bruckheimer and Simpson, came out the year before, and it was Hans Zimmer who did the music. Hans Zimmer was involved, although to what extent, I'm very unclear. So that's one thing about the music that baffles me a little bit about the music. It's credited to this guy, Nick Glennie Smith, and Hans Zimmer, with a couple other people. It's like people who are kind of in Hans Zimmer's like arsenal of composers who like work with him. But Zimmer never really talks about it in his career. I feel like this is not a movie he references very often, and like when he's done his live shows in the last 5 years, he doesn't play any songs from it. But that said, I personally, this was like probably the movie that really took me down a score rabbit hole. I was like, it works so effectively with everything that's going on in the movie. You know, it like really amplifies that tension or the humor. You know, because there's that light theme also, that sort of like family theme or whatever that's plays when Connery's daughter in the film is around, and it plays again towards the end of the film. This sort of like, it's like a English Irish sounding jingle or something. You know what I mean? So for me, the music.
Yeah, I do, because that's quite different.
Yes, it's very different,
Yes.
but it also like works right within
yeah.
the confines of the movie. And so for me, I think it was probably the first time that I can really remember being like observing how well that piece of filmmaking can be used, effectively or not effectively.
Yeah.
And I think it works very well. It's just like everything to me seems to fit together so perfectly in this movie.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So speaking of other pieces, cinematography and the look in San Francisco.
I mean, it's great. It's like I think it's one of those movies for me anyway that makes the city look. It's so cinematic, the city, right? When you're here and you're visiting it and you're looking out over the bay, it doesn't matter if there's fog or not. It's a very beautiful city, and I understand why people traveling from Europe and mostly Europe. I feel like when I talk to Europeans, a lot of Europeans prefer San Francisco over like Los Angeles, right? Well, San Francisco is a little bit more European feeling to me, and I don't know if you feel the same way.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah,
and
right.
Also, just like the streetcars,
Yeah.
the hills,
Yeah, it's just
and the road. The way the architecture in general.
yeah, it looks great. I think that they did such a nice, and it looks like a movie. I hate to sound old, but when I watch a lot of stuff today, it's great that things can be shot on digital, much simpler. I love that people have access to that. That's wonderful. But a lot of it, for me, it loses some of the that film look that I miss.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you still get it, obviously.
Yeah.
But I feel like this movie just looks like a movie. To me, it hasn't aged. That there's some stuff that doesn't look as great. Some of the visual effects. Some of the bodies that get thrown over buildings are obviously, you can tell they're like fake bodies. There's this one in particular where Connery pushes this guy over the edge of a building and he falls. When he's falling, you're like, that's like a wooden body. But when his body hits the like all this trash and shreds and stuff that he falls into, you can see his like wooden arm or plastic arm just like bounce. It's pretty funny. But overall, I feel like the cinematography, it just looks incredible. It makes the city look beautiful. There's this really wonderful shot that I always remember that's like early on in the film where they're showing you what Alcatraz looks like, and the shot's like going like this past the bridge, and you see the city and the fog rolling in. It's just beautiful, Ugh, I love it.
Yeah.
I could watch it on silent.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Exactly. Okay, so here we go. All right, I have some categories, not contestants, but I can't think of the word. But nevertheless, for best line of the film, here are some of the choices. Would be a good way to put it. And so, the first one is, how in the name of Zeus butthole did you get out of your cell? Okay. And then the second one is, I got my first chemistry set when I was 7, blew my eyebrows off. We never saw the cat again, and I've been into it ever since. All right, that's the second one. The third one, I mean it, honey. The world is being FedExed to hell in a handcart. And then finally, I had the fourth choice, which is, I'd take pleasure in gutting you, boy. What do you think?
Those are prime selections. Those are great quotes. And they're all so good for different reasons. Out of those, if I had to pick, I would pick the world being FedExed to hell, because that whole scene is so funny. It's the first time we meet his wife. He's saying this, and then if you've not seen the movie, he's saying this, and then he immediately finds out after that his wife's pregnant, and his whole reaction to her being pregnant is priceless. It's great. It's a really wonderful little moment between them.
Yeah, because why would you want to bring a child into this world?
Exactly.
And then you find out you're bringing a child into this world.
yeah, I love it. He's great. He's so good in the movie. Ugh, yeah.
This is the next question, but I'm going to move it to the last. So let's talk. I want to talk about a couple of the other stars. Ed Harris, who is the general, right? And I wrote down that he's like a boss at work that everyone tries to avoid. His intensity never wavers in this film. He is a very compelling villain, very believable. Such a different role than another standout of his, which I love, Glenn Ross, where I feel like he was sort of timid and the opposite character altogether.
Yeah. He's great in this movie. Very intense, right? Like there's no jokes coming from General Hummel in this movie. That's for sure. And he's serious from the get-go, right? He's the first of the main actors you see in the film. It opens with a montage of him like putting on his military attire and going to visit his wife's grave, who's obviously passed away. On the tombstone it just says his wife, which is very funny to me. That's very strange. It's a good way to say that, audience, if you didn't get who he's going to visit, that's who he's going to visit.
Let you know.
His wife. Ed Harris is great. I've always really liked him. He, to me, seems more like this character than a lighthearted person in real life. I could be completely wrong because a lot of the stuff he did this was very different, right? Like Glengarry Glen Ross. There's this movie that I grew up loving, Milk Money. Did you ever see that?
Oh, yeah.
Melanie Griffith.
The one I like when he plays the artist.
Oh, Pollock. Yeah.
Jackson Pollock.
Super intense,
Yeah,
obviously.
That's a great film.
Yeah.
He's in a lot of great
A
stuff.
lot of stuff. Apollo 13 was after this.
Yeah.
And he's different in that. He's great. He's got a great career. Apollo 13, very different, very likable. And I want to say that was like 3 years before this movie. Maybe he was nominated for that. Do you remember him in that? He's like the what do you call him? The lead controller.
Sure, at
Beckett.
at Houston or whatever.
And he's so good in it. Yeah, really, really good. So I mean, he had a very varied career before this, but so intense in this movie. And I felt like he talked about that. He struggled with all of the lines. There's so much military jargon in the way he sang things in the movie. It's intense. It's a lot, and I think he fumbled a lot. And there's these great outtakes. If you've never seen them, you can definitely find them online, or if you own the Blu-ray or DVD, the Criterion DVD is great. But those, I think, features have been ported over to all the Blu-rays and stuff. Anyway, there's this outtakes section, and the outtakes of Ed Harris slamming the phone down during one of the scenes because he's getting more and more angry is really wonderful. It's like, I don't know how as a young director you would deal with that, but it seems like Michael Bay dealt with it great. According to Ed Harris, became a running joke throughout the rest of the film after they did that scene because Ed Harris doesn't remember if he broke the phone or not. That's right. But apparently for the rest of the scenes that they had to shoot after that with him, Michael Bay always brought a prop phone for Ed Harris to then smash if he needed to. He would be like, if he wasn't getting the thing right, Michael Bay would be like, here's the phone for you, and he would laugh. And then he said sometimes it helped him like get into character, and he would like bash the prop phone or whatever. But,
it seems like very stressful.
Very stressful.
Very frustrating, and
Yeah.
you can see that in these outfits.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But just the level of
So
intensity
good.
that you have to keep up during the whole.
Yeah.
There's no light.
Yeah, he's got a lot weighing on him, I mean, this is a character who I think is really interesting, and it's a weird thing that he chooses to do. I think because he actually thought the government would fold and give in to his ransom, which is like, if you've been working in the government or for the military your whole life, why would you believe that? I mean, do they ever pay people off? I don't think so. So it's interesting that it seems like his character believes that, although he never seemed to intend to actually fire rockets.
Yeah.
But you have to watch the movie to find out if he does fire rockets at the city or not.
You have to watch the movie. So what are the odds that you could stick a needle into your heart to save yourself?
You want me to stick this into my fucking heart? That guy says at the beginning. Isherwood. Yeah, dude. I don't know, man. It's so hard to do anything like that to yourself. I could do it if I had to, I suppose. It would be very difficult. Do you think you could?
I don't know.
Yeah.
But I guess if the alternative is
Well,
death, you might want to think about it.
And maybe...
But boy, you'd have to do it really hard.
And maybe it's like you got to break through like the sternum, right? Yeah. I think that if other people were depending on you, maybe. But if it was just me, I don't know. Just maybe not.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
Let it go.
Yeah.
It's over. So this film is dedicated to Don Simpson, the producing partner of Bruckheimer. And at the end, we see rest in peace, Don. So let's just talk about this place in film history, or the importance of this film in general, but also specifically to his career.
Yeah, so he passed away during the filming of this movie. And, I mean, I can't remember his story exactly in the 70s, but I want to say he worked his way up from, I want to say there's a book out about him that I've been meaning to read, but I believe he started as like not like a Page, but something similar, very low on the totem pole at Paramount, if I remember right. And then kind of moved his way up, eventually was maybe a marketing executive up to like a production executive, I think, if I remember right. And then worked his way into like actually producing. And so he and Bruckheimer produced and really kind of like stylized, I think, a lot of the 80s with movies like Flashdance, Beverly Hills Cop, Top Gun, like a lot of those big, blockbuster films that also had, banging soundtracks, right? I feel like that was like their big MO. And I feel like that kind of shaped a lot of the importance of at least movies in the 80s and into the 90s, like pop culturally speaking, I would say, especially with the soundtracks coming out and being as big of, if not more successful than the movies in some cases, and creating these characters that are still around today, right? People still talk about Flashdance, Beverly Hills Cop, Top Gun obviously had the new movie come out recently, the sequel that is fantastic. I think that he was a very, I think he had good taste in movies, and he kind of knew what to fight for. To me, I like his body of work, even though it's small, maybe like 10 films that he was sort of credited to, but I think an important like part of film history.
Just the fact that all the films you named are, they're very prevalent. Everyone knows who they are, what they are. Everyone has seen them. Newer generations are watching them. There have been sequels or remakes or of all.
Yeah, exactly.
It says a lot.
Yeah, made stars out of quite a few people from these films too, right? Really, Tom Cruise took off, I think, because of Top Gun. It was the first thing that he was really, really, and that's big. Obviously, they did Days of Thunder together after that, which was also a success. Not everybody's favorite movie. I personally like it. But yeah, Eddie Murphy changed him from where he was into, he was already obviously a very well-known person, but put him into a movie star category,
Yeah. Okay, so the question I passed over that I want to return to is just, The Rock is called the perfect action movie, but, devil's advocate. What are some of its flaws, would you say? And this is looking back because it's been 25 or more.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah,
well, the Boiler Room, for sure. I think that Michael Bay's taste in jokes isn't always PC, if you want to say, right? I think there's a lot of like stereotypical views of certain characters or certain people in this movie. And it worked, I suppose, at the time, and it doesn't not work. I don't know. Because I don't. What is that song?
I don't know. We'll probably get flagged on YouTube for it.
Yeah. Sounds like Bowie. I don't know what it is. Anyway, yes, stereotyping, I think, would, for me, be probably the biggest flaw, if you want to say it's a flaw in the movie. And that, I think, happens with a lot of movies, in general, comedies, for sure. It seems like there's a lot of jokes at people's expenses in this movie, like the hairdresser. They have two... listen, it breaks up the tension, right? When The Rock is being taken over at the beginning, they have these two cuts. They have a couple different cuts to like the people who are behind the bars, and I heard that Michael Bay just rolled a bunch of footage, and just like people could say anything, and they probably just ended up using what they thought were the funniest. So I don't know what you want to say about that. If it was these actors who I don't know, but basically it's like this one black man says, what kind of fucked up tour is this?
Oh.
And it's really funny. It's a very funny line, and the way he delivers it is funny, but I don't know, I maybe it could be seen as like stereotypical, or just like in there for a laugh or whatever. And there's a couple things like that throughout the movie too. That I would say, because of the aging of the movie, that's probably the one thing. Yeah, sure. I don't know. Do you see flaws? You've never seen it before, right?
No, I'd never seen it before.
Okay, so
it's just like a lot of things. Things age a little awkwardly.
Yeah.
And also, we know as a society the kind of jokes that we made at the expense of women or minorities or whatever. Sure. That's over.
Yeah.
It's good that it's over.
Right.
But sometimes you'll see little, not even overt, just slivers, subtleties.
Yeah.
Right, but it's in there. Right.
Yeah, like even the guy that Sean Connery steals the Humvee from, right? Like he's not from America, right? Or maybe he is, but he just has an accent, and it's just, so he's an immigrant or not. But it's just like, it just feels like it's an easy joke, right? Like low-hanging fruit or whatever. Yeah.
Easy joke.
For sure. So I mean, for me, that's probably the biggest flaw. I don't know. I mean, since you had just seen it for the first time, other than that, were there anything?
No, I would just say that. Just that some of the things didn't date or didn't
sure
age so well.
Yeah.
And then if there had to be something else, it would just be, there's a lot of like, I don't know if it's bravadity. I don't know what the word is, but it's like
machismo or something.
Yeah, we're Superman.
Yeah, for sure.
Which I get that in conjunction with the military. But some of it's like, okay, it needed to be on 8 and it's on 10.
Yeah, I mean, that's the style of the movie. I partly do like Cage's performance in this for that reason, though. Like, he's, somebody who is at a desk job or in an office job because that's what he wants. He doesn't want to be out in the field. And so when he's like thrust into the field, when he finds out he's got to go out there, he throws up. He's like not excited about this. He's not a combat guy. And I think you see that, throughout the course. It's not like he wants to be the hero or he's just been put in this. It's a similar situation to like John McClane finding himself in a building or whatever, but they're completely different characters, right? Like John McClane is like a type A. He's like that, I can get this stuff done because I'm a manly man or whatever. And Stanley Goodspeed is like, he's like me if I was put into that situation, and you've got like some things that about, and that's why maybe you're put into this situation because you're a specialist, but you don't want to be there. You don't want to have to kill anybody. He's not like a tough guy. Right? Don't you?
Yeah, no, and that's certainly one of the strengths of the film. Is just like watching him. He does have to evolve some ways as a soldier or FBI employee, whatever, in order to just overcome all these obstacles, right? Which is good.
Really fast, I do remember reading, I thought this was pretty interesting, that Connery wanted to work with Cage, and so there was that became like, Cage said he couldn't believe that. He was like, this is like somebody I grew up loving. It was hard to believe that somebody of his status would want to work with Nick Cage. Cage said that they talked about their relationship, their character's relationship, as like a Laurel and Hardy, which I thought was really interesting. Like when they did all their stuff, and it seems like Michael Bay took on to that as well. And there's like, because they're very funny together. They're like this really completely different duo that you really are rooting for. And I thought that this is interesting. There's a scene that I love in the movie where Nick Cage goes in to try to get him to sign the papers. Sean Connery, when he's still got a long hair, and he's trying to get him to come on the mission. So there's a line that he says. Sean Connery says, can you take the cuffs off, or whatever he says, and then Nick Cage is like thinking about it. He scoots his chair back and he goes, can we go ahead and get those taken off of him? And that line apparently is inspired by, this was funny because he mentioned this like in passing. He said, I know this is kind of a weird bit of trivia, but apparently he had heard that Elvis Presley who had a thing about two-way mirrors and chimpanzees. Do you know this?
No.
So apparently, this is the story he tells. He said he had heard something about Elvis having a thing for two-way mirrors and chimpanzees, and so he would bring girls over. I think he put the chimpanzees in panties, is what it sounded like, something weird like that. And the way he would deliver the lines to the girls, like, why don't you go ahead in there and wrestle with those chimpanzees, or something like that. This is the story that Nick Cage told, and so he said, in a weird way, this one line was sort of just completely an homage to this Elvis story he heard, which I thought was funny because he loves Elvis.
And we just happen to be in Cages today.
That's right.
Talking about
it all comes together.
Cage. Yeah. Anyway, it's great to be in San Francisco, and you can see the sun does shine.
Yeah, it's coming.
But anyway, how we always end, of course, is what's next for Cage. I could discuss Cage for hours.
I could discuss Cage for hours, and we will. So I wanted to do something lighter after this, right? We've done. I'm trying to keep it interesting for the viewers, for ourselves, and I think you've probably seen this movie. At least I know you're very familiar with the soundtrack, which is fantastic. For months now, there's been a original UK copy hanging up at Amoeba Records for $200, and obviously I'm not going to buy that, but it just looks so lovely. This great picture of Nick Cage on it. Of all people, I think it's funny that his face is on it. We're going to watch Valley Girl, going back to Los Angeles.
Yes, we're going back to Los Angeles.
It's a wonderful movie. Have you seen it?
Oh, I love that movie.
Okay.
Oh, that music. Oh, all of it.
Great.
Everything about it.
Excited to revisit it. It's a movie that I've always loved of his. Very early Nick Cage performance. So.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, is he called Nicolas Coppola or not? Then
he is Cage. He's Cage. I think he was only Coppola in Fast Times.
Sure. Okay.
I want to say, yeah. Only that, and he's a very, very small part in that. Yeah.
That is super exciting.
Yeah.
So that's going to do it for this episode, and I've got to get releases from all these people who walked by us.
Yeah.
It's been like 100.
Wasn't that what I thought that's what your assistant was doing out there.
So that's going to take a while.
Get those signatures, Paolo.
It will be dark by the time we're done. But thanks so much for joining us. We're glad you're here, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Cage, we will discuss Cage for hours. Welcome to the Rock. Cut.
Okay.
All right.
I'll take pleasure in gutting you, boy.
Son of a bitch, jump ship. Welcome to the Rock. Welcome to the Rock.
Will and Sean are going to San Francisco.
How, in the name of Zeus's butthole, did you get out of your cell?
Cage. I could discuss Cage for hours.